watching Dante's Boxing Nation. Woo!
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Man, I'm telling you right now, the shit is getting serious in the sport of boxing. Shit is really, really getting serious. This year, 2016, is one of the most significant years in quite some time. Because this year, the undisputed pound-for-pound king will be crowned on November 19th. Because we have a pound-for-pound champion. The pound-for-pound champion is Andre Ward right now. But he's the disputed champion. So whoever wins this fight, they are the undisputed pound-for-pound champion. We have not had an undisputed pound-for-pound champion since Floyd Mayweather. But after November 19th, we will have another undisputed champion. So that's great for boxing. That's great for boxing because it eradicates all of the nonsense and the confusion when it comes to who is pound for pound the best fighter in the world. So anyway, getting to the news. So Andre Ward, man, you could tell that he's fired up. To me, Andre Ward, he's looking at this like he's almost going through the Olympics again, or maybe this is the Super Six again when you listen to what he had to say about the emergence of Russians and Eastern European fighters fighting on our turf. Let me go ahead and read exactly what Andre Ward had to say. Quote, "The Eastern European fighters are here, a lot of them. So they are getting those opportunities. I think there is an inherent rivalry there between American and Russians, because they are on our turf trying to make a name, and we're trying to defend what we have, so to speak. That's how I look at it. No disrespect, it's nothing personal, but yeah, I think there is an inherent rivalry there because they are trying to take something that we have." End quote. You know, this is an interesting topic because if you guys have been following my videos or listening to my videos, you heard me say right before and after the Crawford versus Postal fight that this year is basically USA versus Russia or USA versus the former Soviet Union. Now, I remember when I was watching the Victor Postal fight live, it was a writer, he was 2 seats away from me, and he was talking to someone else. And I just heard him, he was talking about the emergence of East European fighters, and he said, man, you know, they're so good, and etc., etc. And then he started downplaying American fighters. He started saying, yeah, you know, I think the American fighters are dying out, and you know, the Eastern European fighters, they're pretty much starting to take over. This is what he pretty much was saying. So I had to interject when he said that. And I said, first of all, it's funny you say that because here we are at the Crawford Postal fight. So when you really think about it, instead of us just talking and trying to figure out who the best is and speculating, etc., etc., this year we're going to put that question to the test. Because so far this year, we've already had Crawford versus Postal. We've seen how that turned out. Now we have the biggest fight of the year, most significant fight of the year. Whoever wins this fight is undeniably crowned the undisputed pound-for-pound king, and that is Andre Ward versus Sergey Kovalev. So once again, this is why this is such a great year of boxing. we do have this huge emergence of Eastern European fighters. And Sergey Kovalev has finally reached the top. Now he goes against the best fighter America has to offer right now. This is another Super 6 almost. It's just a Super 2, I guess. There's no doubt about it. There are some great Eastern European fighters right now. Lomachenko, he stands out the most. He seems like the most complete Eastern European fighter right now. He beat Gary Russell Jr., which was a huge win. And by the way, Gary Russell Jr., he said he's willing to do anything today to avenge that loss. He said he's planning on trying to clean up the featherweight division, and he says after he does that, he's moving right up to 130 just to get a rematch with Lomachenko. So that should be a pretty big rematch right there. But at the same time, we still have to find out if that loss to Salido was a blueprint to beat him, or was that just an inexperienced Lomachenko at the time who only had 2 professional fights, but he had damn near 400 amateur fights. So we don't know. And from what I'm hearing in the reports, it's sounding like that Salido-Lomachenko rematch is not going to happen, because according to Team Lomachenko, Salido is asking for too much. He's demanding too much for the fight to be made. So that would really be unfortunate, I think, for Lomachenko, because I truly believe that when it comes to Lomachenko, if you have a loss on your record, you should be the main person to make that deal come to fruition, no matter what it takes. If this man wants an extra $100,000 or whatever, you should make that fight happen, because you need to avenge that loss. Okay? So, you know, that's not a good look if Lomachenko or Team Lomachenko, they pass up Salido and we never see that rematch. Now, I want to go back to this USA Eastern European rivalry, because as sad as it sounds, it's really disturbing to me when I hear an All-American like Andre Ward say, you know, these Russians are trying to take what we have, right? And while Andre Ward is saying that, being extremely patriotic, you have Americans in our own country that are actually rooting for the other country. Do you know how bad that makes our country look to all the other countries? Only in America will you see American journalists, blow-by-blow announcers, writers, etc., people like Jim Lampley, who is the grand wizard of the decafs, people like ESPN's Dan Raphael, which is second in command. Let me tell you how biased this man Dan Raphael is. Do you guys know that this man, he has boycotted Andre Ward's last 2 fights? Just think about this for a second. Andre Ward, who is considered by many as pound for pound the best fighter in the world, and if he beats Kovalev, he's undisputed, undeniably the best fighter in the world. But Andre Ward, a guy who's sponsored by Jordan, has landed movie roles. You guys seen him in the movie Creed. Dan Raphael refused to even cover this man's event, as if we are living in the 1940s or some shit. Not only does he not cover Andre Ward's event, but then he writes an article. He calls the Andre Ward fight sewerage. And he says that it was the worst fight ever on HBO. Worse than Klitschko versus Fury, and a whole bunch of other fights that I could mention that goes all the way back to the last 40 or 30 years. this man said Andre Ward was the worst fight on HBO. And you can just tell, just reading the article and the things and the words that he's using, you can tell that it's personal. You can tell he's saying, I really don't like this man. I can't stand this man. Because see, you have to understand something. If I thought a fight was boring, that's not enough for me to dislike that fighter, right? When I seen Klitschko versus Fury, that was a dreadful fight. It was a dreadful fight. I mean, I think they said Vladimir Klitschko, he was throwing like 3 or 4 punches a round. I forget what the stats were, but they were horrible. But if you compare the stats to Andre Ward versus Brand, Andre Ward's stats were very impressive, right? But yet, a writer like Dan Raphael, he would tell the American public that Andre Ward, his fight against Brand was the most boring fight ever. But he doesn't put Klitschko versus Fury on that list of worst fights on HBO. Once again, 2 foreigners, Klitschko and Fury. These type of people like Jim Lampley, Dan Raphael, they will throw their own countrymen under the bus to praise a fighter from another country. You know what that's called? That's called treason. That is the highest form of betrayal that can be used. And I want you to understand something. When I say as an American, I'm not suggesting you're just supposed to root for people just because they're from America. But what I am saying is you're supposed to at least give them the credit they deserve. You don't have to falsify and make up anything. The least you could do is at least give this fighter the credit he deserves. If the guy is considered pound for pound the best fighter in the world, why are you treating him like he's this bum who has one of the worst records in the sport of boxing? That's all I'm saying, okay? Because I'm all American, but I've given credit to fighters that are not American because I'm a boxing fan. But how are you an American, but you don't like American fighters? You personally don't like them. Because once again, when you listen to the undertones, and you really listen to what Dan Raphael is saying, he's telling you how he personally feels about this man. When he says the worst fight ever, that means the closer Andre Ward coming to winning, the more angry this man was. When you hate someone's guts and you see them about to win, wouldn't that kind of upset you? Because when you don't like someone, you are praying for their downfall, right? And this is what these fake Americans do. And then it's even more offensive when you have an American telling another American, what the hell are you doing saying positive things about that American fighter? This is the type of shit we deal with in this country, guys. Do you guys know if Andre Ward, Guillermo Rigondeaux, Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, Floyd Mayweather, do you know if all of these fighters were British and they were all British? Do you know that there would be no racial divide? There would be no one saying, oh, screw you, mate. I heard that you're a Mayweather supporter or a Andre Ward supporter, etc., etc. You would get none of that in the UK. Don't get me wrong. There's always a percentage of decafs, but the percentage is way less compared to America. You would never get that type of divide out there. Only in America do you have a divided country where Americans despise American athletes, and it's all personal when it's supposed to be about boxing, right? Can you imagine going to the Philippines and you hear a group of, let's say, writers or boxing fans arguing, right? And you have one group that are accusing the other group of being some Manny Pacquiao fanboys. Oh, you're just a Manny Pacquiao fanboy and this and that. You just like him, don't you? Why don't you admit it? Do you think you would ever hear a conversation like that in the Philippines? No, you wouldn't. Because they're all united. Now, don't get me wrong. You can still speak the truth and be united. No one is saying you're supposed to be biased towards your own country. That's not what this is about. This is only about giving people credit who deserve credit. Once again, if Manny Pacquiao right now is pound for pound the best fighter in the world, right? And all the other countries, they look at him as pound for pound the best fighter in the world. Do you really think there's going to be some Filipino fans or some writers writing articles? Manny Pacquiao is overrated. He's garbage. That performance against Brandon Rios was boring, and etc., etc., etc. You think they're going to be bashing him like that? You think they're going to be praying for Pacquiao's demise? They're not. They're not. This only happens in America. It happens in no other country but this country right here. So when you hear Andre Ward say, this is USA versus Russia, USA versus the former Soviet Union countries, and these fighters are basically coming to our turf, once again, it is very unfortunate that we're in a civil war and we're not united when Andre Ward says that. So in a certain way, it almost looks like he's on his own when he says they're on our turf. That's pretty much all I got for now, and I'll talk a lot more about this topic on another video. I'm on to the next one.